The mining station floated like a metal speck against the endless black of space. Jace Rivera wiped sweat from his forehead as he adjusted the drilling equipment on asteroid XK-47. 3 years of deep space mining had taught him that silence meant trouble. The universe was never truly quiet. That morning started like any other. Coffee that tasted like recycled water. Reports from Earth about resource shortages. Another day of breaking rocks in the void. Jace checked his communications panel while the automated drills hummed their mechanical song. Nothing unusual. Captain Torres was reviewing supply requests. Engineer Beck was complaining about faulty air recyclers again. Then the sky exploded. A ship burst from hyperspace travel, trailing fire and sparks like a dying comet. It was unlike anything in human records. The hull shimmered with colors that shifted between silver and deep purple. Strange symbols glowed along its sides before flickering out. The vessel spun wildly, clearly out of control. Jace grabbed his emergency radio. Captain Torres, we have an unknown ship in distress. It's heading straight for the asteroid field. Copy that, Rivera. All mining operations stop immediately. Everyone back to base. But Jace couldn't move. The ship was beautiful, even in its death spiral. It crashed into a neighboring asteroid with a sound that shook his bones through his environmental suit. Debris scattered like stars across the darkness. Jace, get back here now. Torres's voice crackled through static. There might be survivors, Captain. Not our problem. That's not a human ship. Jace stared at the crash site. Smoke and strange blue flames rose from the wreckage. Something inside him, maybe curiosity or simple human decency, wouldn't let him turn away. I'm going to check for survivors. Negative. Return to base immediately. Jace switched off his radio and fired his suit's thrusters toward the crash site. The journey took 20 minutes of careful navigation through floating debris. Up close, the ship was even more incredible. The metal seemed alive, pulsing with faint energy. Sections of the hull had peeled back like flower petals, revealing an interior that glowed with soft, bioluminescent light. He found the entry point where the hull had cracked open. Inside, everything was curved and organic. The walls looked grown, rather than built. Strange plants or machines lined the corridors, their purpose unclear. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows as Jace made his way deeper into the ship. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing strangely. "Anyone alive in here?" Sound reached his ears. Soft, musical, almost like someone singing. He followed it through winding passages until he reached what looked like the bridge. Banks of controls that resembled crystalline formations surrounded a central chair. And in that chair sat the most extraordinary being Jace had ever seen. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin had a pale blue tint that seemed to shift in the strange light. Long silver hair fell around her shoulders. Her features were delicate, almost ethereal, with large eyes that held depth like looking into deep ocean water. She wore clothing that seemed to be made of the same material as the ship, flowing and alive. Blood that glowed faintly purple seeped from a wound on her arm. She was conscious but weak, looking at him with a mixture of fear and hope. When she spoke, the words were in a language he'd never heard, musical and complex. But her tone was universal. She was asking for help. Jace approached slowly, hands visible and empty. "I'm not going to hurt you. My name is Jace." He pointed to himself. "Jace." She studied him for a long moment, then pointed to herself. "Silira." Her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Jace felt something shift in his chest, a warmth he hadn't experienced in years of cold space duty. He activated his suit's medical scanner and gestured toward her wounded arm. She hesitated, then nodded. The scanner revealed that her physiology was similar enough to human that basic first aid might help. Jace carefully cleaned and bandaged her wound using supplies from his emergency kit. She winced but didn't pull away. Her large eyes watched every movement with intelligent curiosity. "Xylera," he said again, and she smiled. The expression transformed her face, making her even more beautiful. She said something in her musical language, and though he couldn't understand the words, her gratitude was clear. That's when they heard the distant sound of ships approaching. Xylera's expression changed instantly to one of terror. She grabbed Jace's arm and spoke urgently, pointing toward the deeper parts of her ship. Even without translation, her message was clear. Someone was coming, and she was afraid of them. Jace looked at this mysterious woman who had fallen from the stars into his ordinary life. Every regulation said he should contact the authorities, turn her over to proper channels. But something in her eyes stopped him. She wasn't just afraid. She was desperate. "Okay," he said softly. "I'll help you." He helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as they moved toward the back of the ship. Her legs were shaky, but she pushed forward with determination. They reached what looked like an escape pod, but it was damaged beyond use. The pursuing ships were getting closer. Jace made a decision that would change everything. He activated his personal beacon and spoke into his emergency communicator. "This is Rivera. I've found the crash site. Ship is empty. No survivors. Looks like it broke apart on impact." He looked at Xylera and put his finger to his lips. She nodded, understanding the need for silence. Together, they made their way out of her ship and toward his small mining shuttle. It would be a tight fit, but they could make it back to this station without being detected. As they traveled through space toward the mining station, Xylera sat quietly beside him, occasionally speaking in her language. Jace found himself responding, even though he couldn't understand her words. Something about her presence was calming and exciting at the same time. When they reached the station, Jace faced his biggest challenge yet. How do you hide an alien princess in a mining facility designed for 12 human workers? He guided Xylera to his personal quarters, the only space with any privacy. She looked around his small room with wonder, touching his few personal belongings with gentle curiosity. "Stay here," he said, gesturing for her to remain. "Safe." She nodded and settled onto his narrow bed. Her alien clothing seemed to adjust automatically to her new position. Everything about her was fascinating and mysterious. Jace realized his life had just become infinitely more complicated and somehow more meaningful than 3 years of routine mining operations. Outside his door, he could hear Captain Torres organizing search parties for the crash site. They would find the empty ship and probably assume any survivors had been vaporized in the explosion. It would buy them time, but not much. 3 days passed in a strange dance of secrecy and discovery. Jace brought food to his quarters under the pretense of not feeling well. His crewmates accepted his explanation without much concern. Space duty made everyone a little odd eventually. Xylera proved to be a quick learner. She studied everything in his room with scientific curiosity, from his few books to his collection of Earth music. She seemed particularly fascinated by photographs of Earth's oceans and forests. When she saw images of whales, she made excited sounds and gestured to herself, then to the pictures. "You have creatures like this on your world?" Jace asked, knowing she couldn't understand, but hoping his tone conveyed the question. She nodded vigorously and began drawing with her finger on his desk's dusty surface. Her sketches showed magnificent beings that looked like a cross between whales and dragons, soaring through what appeared to be crystalline forests. Her world was clearly as beautiful as she was. Communication slowly improved through gestures, drawings, and simple words. Xylera was remarkably intelligent. picking up basic human language with surprising speed. By the fourth day, she could say Jace, thank you, water, and beautiful, while pointing at his pictures of Earth. But she also said other things, words that sounded sad and urgent. She would point to herself, then make gestures that looked like chains or bindings, followed by expressions of distress. Someone was forcing her to do something she didn't want to do. On the fifth day, everything changed. Jace was bringing her breakfast when she grabbed his hand and said, Mary, no Mary. She shook her head violently and pointed to herself. Xylera, no Mary. The pieces began falling into place. She was running from an arranged marriage. The crash wasn't an accident of war, but an escape attempt. That explained the pursuing ships and her fear when they had approached her crashed vessel. You don't want to marry someone, Jace said slowly, and she nodded. Bad man. Hurt people. Her English was improving rapidly. Xylera ran away. That afternoon, while Jace was on duty, Torres called into the communications center. Rivera, we're getting some strange transmissions. Alien languages, but our computers are trying to translate. Jace's heart raced as he looked at the partial translation on the screen. Princess Xylera. Reward for information. Unite the clans. Marriage must proceed. Sounds like some kind of alien political drama, Torres said with a shrug. Not our problem. Unless they come looking around here. But Jace knew they would come looking. Xylera was too important to whoever wanted to marry her. That night, he shared the translation with her, and she confirmed his fears. Father promised marriage to Corvin. Of northern clans, stop war between our people. But Corvin is cruel. Kill many. I cannot marry monster. Her English was improving every day, and with it came the full tragedy of her situation. She was a princess, expected to sacrifice her happiness for political alliance. The marriage would end a civil war on her planet, but condemn her to life. With someone she described as a monster. What will you do? Jace asked. Cannot go home. Cannot marry Corvin. Maybe die here better than life with him. The sadness in her voice broke something inside Jace. He had spent 3 years in space, running from his own problems. A failed relationship on Earth. Parents who wanted him to be someone he wasn't. Dead-end career prospects. But Xylera was facing something infinitely worse, and she was handling it with grace and courage he envied. You don't have to die, he said. There has to be another way. Over the following days, they grew closer. Language barriers faded as understanding deepened. Xylera told him about her world, Zelthara, where cities floated among crystal trees. And people could communicate telepathically with the great sky whales she had drawn. Her people were ancient, wise, but divided by old grudges and territorial disputes. Jace shared stories of Earth, of blue oceans and green forests, of humanity's short but turbulent history. She listened with wonder, asking questions about concepts that didn't exist on her world. Rain, snow, the feeling of sand between your toes. Your people explore far from home, she observed. Brave like sky whales who travel between worlds. Maybe too brave sometimes, Jace admitted. We don't always think things through. Sometimes thinking too much makes person afraid to live. The wisdom in her words struck him deeply. He had been afraid to live, hiding in space to avoid making real decisions about his future. But here was someone who had risked everything for the chance to choose her own destiny. On the 8th day, their world collapsed. Captain Torres burst into Jace's quarters without warning, expecting to find him sick in bed. Instead, he found Jace teaching Xylera to play chess while she taught him words in her language. What in the hell is going on here, Rivera? There was no hiding it anymore. Xylera stood gracefully, her alien beauty unmistakable in the harsh fluorescent light. Torres reached for his communicator, but Jace stepped between them. Captain, please. Let me explain. Explain why you're harboring an alien fugitive on my station. Explain why you lied about the crash site. Because she needs help. Because it's the right thing to do. Torres stared at them both, his weathered face showing the strain of command in deep space. Do you have any idea what you've done? There are 3 alien ships in the outer system right now, searching every asteroid. They're looking for her. Aren't they? Xylera stepped forward, her posture regal despite the circumstances. I am Princess Xylera of Zelthara. I seek sanctuary from forced marriage to cruel man. Jace showed kindness when others would not. Her formal English surprised Torres. Princess? Her father wants her to marry someone to end the war, Jace explained. She's running away because the man is a monster. Torres looked between them, understanding, dawning in his eyes. And you decided to play hero. I decided to help someone who needed it. The captain sat heavily in Jace's chair. Those ships out there are armed, military vessels. If they find her here, they'll consider us hostile for harboring her. This whole station could be destroyed. Then we need to find another solution, Jace said. The next 12 hours tested everyone's resolve. Captain Torres called an emergency meeting, revealing Xylera's presence to the crew. The reactions ranged from fascination to fear, but ultimately, the 12 humans of mining station XK-47 decided to protect their unexpected guest. Engineer Beck, a man who rarely spoke to anyone, surprised everyone by offering to help modify their communications array to contact Earth. If she's really a princess, maybe Earth Command would be interested. In first contact protocols, Dr. Martinez, their medic, examined Xylera and declared her physically similar enough to humans that she could probably survive on Earth if necessary. Her physiology is remarkable, almost like our species evolved from similar origins. But Xylera shook her head sadly when they discussed Earth as a sanctuary. Cannot bring war to your beautiful world. Corvin would follow, hurt innocent people to reclaim me. That's when Jace realized something important. What if you didn't have to choose? Between marrying him and running away? What if there was a third option? What do you mean? Torres asked. She's a princess. Her marriage would create an alliance, right? What if she formed a different alliance instead? Xylera looked at him with growing understanding. Alliance? With humans? Why not? Your people are clearly advanced. Humans are explorers, miners, engineers. We could help each other. But marriage required for alliance is tradition. Jace felt his heart racing as he spoke his next words. Then marry. A human. The room fell silent. Everyone stared at him, but Jace only looked at Xylera. Over the past 9 days, something profound had grown between them. It started with simple kindness, but had deepened into something neither had expected. Love that transcended species, worlds, and the vast loneliness of space. Jace, she whispered, I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for a short time, but I can't imagine letting you go. I can't imagine returning to my old life after meeting you. Torres stood up abruptly. This is insane. You're talking about interspecies marriage for political alliance. The legal complications alone would take years to sort out. Not if both parties consent, Dr. Martinez said thoughtfully. I've been reading about marriage customs in deep space law. As long as both individuals are adults of their species and agree freely, the union can be recognized by Earth Command. But would it work politically? Beck asked. Would her people accept a human husband? Xylera stood, her royal bearing evident despite her simple clothes. My people respect strength and honor. Jace showed both when he saved me. But Corvin will not accept this easily. He wants power that comes with marrying into royal family. Then we make sure he understands the new reality, Torres said grimly. Those 3 ships out there? They're about to get a message they won't forget. The plan came together quickly. Using the mining station's industrial equipment, they created a communications array powerful enough to broadcast across multiple star systems. The message would be simple. Princess Xylera was under human protection, had chosen her own path, and any attempt to take her by force would be considered an act of war against humanity. It was a bluff of cosmic proportions. The mining station had no weapons beyond basic mining lasers. But sometimes the appearance of strength was enough, especially when backed by righteousness. Xylera recorded her message in her own language, her voice carrying all the authority of her royal birth. She announced her decision to marry for love rather than politics, her choice to ally her people with humanity, and her challenge to anyone who opposed her right to choose her own destiny. When the alien ships received the transmission, the response was immediate. 2 of the 3 vessels departed within hours, apparently unwilling to risk confrontation. But the 3rd ship, larger and more heavily armed, moved closer to the asteroid belt. "That'll be Corvin," Xylera said, her voice steady despite the danger. "He will not give up easily." The standoff lasted 3 days. The alien warship prowled the asteroid field like a predator, occasionally sending threatening messages that their translation computers could partially decode. Demands for Xylera's return, promises of destruction if the humans interfered. But on the 3rd day, something unexpected happened. More ships arrived. Not human vessels, but alien ones similar to Xylera's original craft. A fleet of them, led by a magnificent ship that dwarfed even Corvin's warship. "My mother," Xylera breathed, watching the new arrivals on their sensors. "Queen Velara comes herself." The Queen's message, when it came, was in perfect English. Apparently, Xylera's people had been monitoring human broadcasts for years, learning about Earth and its inhabitants. "Princess Xylera, you have chosen your path. If this human male will stand before our council and prove his worth as protector and ally, your marriage will be recognized." Jace felt his knees go weak. Stand before a council of alien royalty? What exactly does that involve? "Tests of courage, wisdom, and devotion," Xyla explained. "But do not fear. You have already shown all 3 by protecting me." The ceremony took place on Queen Velara's flagship, a vessel that was more like a floating palace than a warship. The interior was filled with the same bioluminescent beauty as Xylera's crashed ship, but on a scale that took Jace's breath away. The Queen herself was magnificent, an older version of Xylera with silver hair and eyes that held the wisdom of ages. She studied Jace carefully before speaking. "Human Jace Rivera, you ask to join our family, to become part of our people's future. Are you prepared for this responsibility?" "I am, Your Majesty. I love your daughter, and I believe our peoples can build something beautiful together." The tests were challenging, but not impossible. Jace had to demonstrate problem-solving skills by helping repair damaged systems on the ship. He showed courage by volunteering to enter dangerous areas during the repairs. Most importantly, he proved his devotion by refusing to leave Xylera's side even when offered safe passage back to the mining station. When it was over, Queen Velara smiled for the first time. "You are worthy, Jace Rivera of Earth. May your union bring peace between our worlds." The wedding ceremony combined human and Zeltharian traditions. Jace wore his best uniform, while Xylera was dressed in flowing robes that seemed to be made of captured starlight. They exchanged vows in both languages, promising to love and protect each other across the vast distances of space. Captain Torres, serving as Jace's best man, later admitted he cried during the ceremony. "Never thought I'd see something so beautiful in this cold universe." As for Corvin, he found himself facing a united front of Zeltharians and humans. Rather than risk a war he couldn't win, he agreed to negotiate peace through other means. The civil war on Zelthara ended not through forced marriage, but through the example of love conquering political ambition. 6 months later, Jace and Xylera lived on a new space station built jointly by humans and Zelfarians, serving as ambassadors between their peoples. The mining operation had become a cultural exchange program, with both species learning from each other. "Do you ever regret it?" Xylera asked one evening as they watched both Earth and Zelfara visible through their viewport. "Regret finding the most incredible woman in the galaxy? Never." She laughed, the sound still like wind chimes to his ears. "Even though she crashed into your quiet life and changed everything?" "Especially because of that," Jace said, taking her hand. "Sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places." Outside their window, ships from both worlds traveled peacefully between the stars, carrying trade, knowledge, and the promise of a future neither species could have built alone. And at the heart of it all was a love that had started with a simple act of kindness and grown to bridge the gap between worlds. The universe, Jace realized, was no longer quite so cold and empty. Not when you had someone to share it with.